Hey folks, it's Ardwulf. Welcome to Counterclipping for March 7th, 2022. This is show number 64. I would like to welcome you all to the show this evening. Our topic is most anticipated Wargames. And it might seem like this is kind of late in the year to do that, but on the other hand, we now have more information about stuff that's coming out this year, about what specifically will be coming out this year than we necessarily had in like January. So we're going to talk about that. We will touch on the recent GMT shipments. We'll explain where all that's at. We are drinking Tam Navulin double cask still. We're going to try and finish this off. We're not going to make it tonight, I'm afraid. We are going to try to finish off clipping the Third World War because, boy, there's a lot of clipping coming, which will arrive soonish. We'll see. We'll see exactly when that stuff is going to get here. So, but it ain't here yet. So... but it's going to be a lot of clipping when it gets here. So I want to finish this. I don't have any units to clip here with Third World War anymore. It's all the units are clipped. It's all markers. And my plan is to now put some of the high volume markers like these and the disruption markers and stuff like that in baggies. We'll see how this actually fits. I'm not convinced it's all going to fit back in the box. We will see how that goes. So before we get started, I'd like to remind everybody, please do subscribe to the channel. Please do give the video a thumbs up. Please do click the little bell dealio to get notified when new stuff comes out. And if you want to do more to help support Ardwulf's Lair, please do check out the links in the video description to the Patreon, the merch store, and the Ko-Fi. Now, I'm going to actually mention this. I'm going to pull this up at some point tonight. Let me do that now. We'll talk about the Patreon specifically just a little bit later on because I have a thing that I found that we had to fix, and I got to pull the card up to make it obvious. So one of the bad things about Patreon is that the notifications are kind of garbage. Sometimes you don't get notifications. It doesn't tell you a lot of. Sometimes it'll tell you when somebody drops. Sometimes it won't. Sometimes it'll tell you when somebody signs up. Sometimes it won't. Sometimes it'll tell you if somebody changes their pledge. Sometimes it won't. It's really pretty gosh darn annoying. So this is the current Patreon's list. So first of all, I would like to thank everyone for being patrons of Ardwulf's Lair. Thank you so much. But I had to actually go through this with this CSV file to figure out who's still a patron and who's not. And that was a bit of a hassle. So Patreon, if you're watching, stop screwing that up. But, thanks to you folks, we're able to keep doing this and keep making the show better and better and better. So thanks so much for that. So, before we get started, try and fix all this stuff. Before we get started with that, let's say hello to Charles Latora, Missing Seattle, John Sy from the sunny and stylishly dressed Philippines, Vince Reed, Jeff Beeler, Alan Salazar, Joe Perez, Thomas Bandy, Patrick of Patrick's Tactics and Tutorials, Michael Potts, Carl Crater from the Wargame Bootcamp, Alan Salazar, we've said already, David Imperato, Strelnikov, Tom Borman, Purple Norseman, Matt Taylor, Stigler is in the house, Mike Anthony, did I get you yet? Vince Ree, Chap Mags, welcome to the stream. Christopher Prest, welcome back. James Whitmer, Chad Kennedy, Henry Sikorsky, Nicholas Oliver, Marty Sample, awaiting his Enema Action Kharkov from Compass Games, presumably. Jeffrey Wesovich, Mickey Youth, Roger Hemsath, John Clark, Todd Walser, Fucko is in the house. Ed Meister, Vince Ree, I think I got you already. Jacob Guernsey, Peter Berg, Bill Simone, Brent McCabe, Greg Grant, Richard DeFortuna, Mark McNair, Joel, Chet Bell, Jim Jennings, H. Tuna, Matt Davidson, Fast Hines, William Bird, Jason W., John Longshore is in the house. Not Jay's Tabletop Gaming, welcome to the stream. Kilroy of Kilroy was here. John Keyports, Ken X, Ray Musselman, and the one true Flem. That's how many people we got so far. There's like a thing you can pull up to see the participants, but if somebody dropped, it won't list them, and that's irritating, and I don't like it. So, let's see where we're at here. Hold on just a second. I gotta pull stuff back up because it's busted. All right. So, and we did make sure that our audio was working great today. So, thank you, John Sai from the sunny Philippines, for picking up the shirt. I am sure it is very stylish. I actually don't have a red one, but I liked the red. So, Findle70, welcome back to the show, and MBWMWG, welcome back to the stream, and Kent Sherm as well. So I did like the red. That's why I made the red available. I didn't want to just make them all black, because I got plenty of, boy, do I have a lot of black shirts. But there isn't one in white, because I don't like white shirts. So anyway, Jeff Beeler says he just finished a local planning open session, so I'll talk a little bit about Buckeye Game Fest, which is coming up. The War Room opens on April 4th. I'll talk a little bit about that tonight as well, and about what we have on the docket happening, and specifically what is available, war game-wise, to just anybody can show up and do, versus stuff that's already, arranged and kind of full. Mike Anthony got the purple one. I like the purple one as well. Pelican IPA in the glass tonight. When we were out at Winterfest, I went to a couple different stores looking for, I should buy some beer, because, people drink beer at this thing. And I actually drank a few beers at this thing. And, man, I could find very little local microbrew stuff that wasn't IPAs. It was kind of irritating. Very little was not an IPA or a pale ale or some kind of other heavily hopped stuff. Now we're in Sandusky, Ohio, right? It ain't exactly the beer capital of the world. So that was a thing that was noticed, right? So, Vince Ree is starting to punch a clip Day of Days. That'll take a little bit of time. It's a fast clip for how big it is. This sucker's taken me forever. But then again, I haven't gotten any clipping done outside the stream in a couple of weeks. So, probably in about a month, actually. So that's why we're still working on Third World War. I got a little bit done over the weekend, but not much. Truthfully, much of the weekend was spent a little bit sick. So, was not the greatest weekend I've had in recent memory, that's for sure. So, better that the week after I come back from Winterfest than the week of Winterfest. All right, so what are we doing? We're still playing War in the Desert locally here. We are in, I believe, the beginning of February 1943. The game ends in, I believe, May of 43. So we might actually be in March. So we anticipate that there will be 2 to 3 more sessions of War in the Desert. And the way it looks right now, there's no reason not to just play it till the end, but the way it looks right now, the Germans look like they're going to eke out on points at the end. And that's just because of sluggish Allied progress in a couple of places. And that is despite the rather large hit in victory points that the Axis had to take for assigning the forces that they needed for the invasion of Malta, which is a thing that did happen. The Axis invaded and took Malta. Jeff Anderson, welcome back to the stream. Chad Canary. Yeah, we'll talk about OCS coming up stuff too. I got to get now is probably the time to get Tony and Chip and Curtis on the hook for another video, but I got to also be mindful of Buckeye Game Fest, which is coming up pretty soon as well. So our Blitzkrieg Legend game is still set up. We'd like to finish it. We are playing OCS this Thursday after a break for Winterfest, and then, of course, our host was traveling for various things last week, so we weren't able to play last week. But we're going to pick something up for OCS on Thursday this week, and then as soon as I think the plan is going to be to set up Forgotten Battles, the playtest copy. Now, I believe there's one copy of Forgotten Battles OCS in the Western Hemisphere, and I have it. I won't have it for long, but right now it's sitting right off camera. So please do check out all the photos and stuff I shared from Winterfest if you want to see pictures of Forgotten Battles. The counters are nothing to look at because they're just playtest counters clipped rather badly, but the maps are good-looking prototypes, not final maps. After Blitzkrieg Legend wraps up, which it's about probably over halfway done, I think. Not halfway to the end of the game if you count turns till the end of the game, but it is... We probably won't finish all 14 turns, let me put it that way. And then after that, we're going to do Forgotten Battles. Now, on the other table where we're currently playing War in the Desert, the Europa War in the Desert, we are going to next pick up Pacific War, which ought to be here soon, which segues me into most anticipated war games of 2022. And it is really not all that surprising that a bunch of mine from GMT, at least, are in the shipment that I just got a shipping notification from GMT on Sunday. So it does look like they did not get all the U.S. shipments out on Friday like they planned, but it also looks like they are working OT to get them all out because they're apparently still shipping on the Sunday. I don't have actual. I have tracking numbers, but I don't have actual tracking on it yet. Usually takes about a business day, for UPS to figure out their tracking. My stuff comes to a total. It says 2 copies of Pacific War, 2 copies of Vietnam, 1 copy each of Barbarossa Army Group Center, Into the Woods, and Salerno 43. And am I missing one? I don't think so. So it's a lot of stuff. Total 40 pounds. They actually broke it up into 2 boxes. So I have... I'm not really surprised. I have two tracking numbers. Now, for my most anticipated list, the only one I'm a bit cool on at the moment, and this will change as soon as I see it probably, is actually Salerno 43. That's a topic I'm super interested in, but I haven't really done much legwork on it. It was just like, yeah, Mark Simonich wants to know their operational World War II thing. Sure, I'll buy it. But I don't know when it's going to get played. It's possible it'll make its way to Buckeye Game Fest and get played there. That could happen. None of the other stuff on this list, on my list here today, is likely to make that except for Salerno 43. So Pacific War is like my most anticipated of anything at this point, right? I'm super excited about it. There have been a couple of unboxings already. It is... Chad Kennedy will talk about the MMP prospectus in a minute here. But... I'm very impressed with what I've seen of it so far. There are some kind of mild changes from the Victory Games edition, but nothing huge. Mostly, I think it's probably just tweaking scenarios and making a very couple small fine tunings. But the submarine rules are supposedly different, so I haven't really absorbed that yet. So Pacific War, Barbarossa Army Group Center, of course, many of us have been waiting for that for years. I'm very curious to see what Vance has done with the new edition. I'm also very curious to see what the progress looks, and we're not going to know this month, progress is like for the remaining games in the series that all still have to come out, all of which have made their P500 number years and years ago. So I anticipate having Pacific War, assuming... no shipping mishap occurs, I should have it by the end of next week. Bear in mind, I'm in Ohio, they're in California, right? So I should have it by the end of next week. And I am going on, and we'll talk about this too. There's going to be another rescheduled show that's not happening on the regular Monday night slot this month. Well, my wife and I go to Seattle. So I will be missing several days of clipping, but I still think I'm going to be able to get Pacific War clipped and ready to go before the end of the month. Certainly before the 3 to 4 weeks that we have between now and when we finish War in the Desert. Into the Woods is another one. Great Battles of the American Civil War. It's a fine series. It looks like a wonderful package. Looking forward to that. The stuff that's not in this batch of stuff from GMT includes, for me, Great Battles of Julius Caesar, the big package. That's going to be another big value-packed box with the original Great Battles of Julius Caesar, which has not been in print for literally ever, as well as Caesar Conquest of Gaul, some expansions, a whole bunch of stuff is going to be in there. It's going to be a wonderful package. Stigler, I don't know if that's not on my list just because it's an expansion. I ordered it, I'll tell you that, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm not sure how it's going to fit in the Death Valley box, I got to tell you. But it is something that I've been looking forward to. Now, from Compass, let me skip ahead on my list to Compass. The biggest thing from Compass that I was most excited about is this. So, and it's here. So there's that. So, and it is a 2022 release. I'm also very interested in War for America, which, as somebody mentioned, they said they're going to start shipping that on March 18th. That's already had its Kickstarter. Carrier Battles Philippine Sea, I think there's a pretty good chance we'll see that this year. And a lot of what's on my list is based on some assumptions, some of which is probably optimistic about what is likely to actually release this year. So there's some whole bunch of GMT stuff that I have on order and that I'm very interested in seeing that ain't on the list because I don't think we'll see it this year. Carrier Battles Philippine Sea Atlantic Sentinels. That is a Gregory M. Smith game. It's kind of the companion game to the Hunters, where instead of playing the German submarines, you play the Allied convoy escorts. And the two games can be played together simultaneously. It sounds super duper exciting. I'm very interested to see what that looks like when it hits. Mark McNair says he's never owned Pacific War. I think at this point, it came out in 85. It's probably been out of print since about 1990. Not that it was a really monstrously hard game to find, but for a while it was going for over $100 on the secondary market. That hasn't been the case for a couple of years since the GMT new edition made such a huge splash and everybody knows about it. I do have Great Battles of Caesar on pre-order. James Whitmer says he is clipping his most anticipated game, which is Barbarossa Army Group Center. Also his most anticipated game of 2018, 2019, 2020, and 2021. None of that is surprising. It hit its number many years ago. I mean, we're not in any secret. I don't think this particular title is due to GMT bottleneck issues. Let me put it that way. This was the designer and his team didn't turn it in until last January or so. And at that point, then it starts looking like, hey, this can go to the printer. So it's been about a year since that happened, and that is not the worst turnaround time you could ask for. Let me put it that way. People Power from GMT. That is actually, all the coin games are reasonably interesting. Several people are mentioning Winter's Victory, which is the New England Simulations game using the Wellington's Victory system on the Battle of Eylau, Napoleonic Battle of Eylau. And that is an interesting looking game. It is also an interesting battle. It's a very one of the, I think, I'd say half dozen or so most interesting, people will disagree with this, of course, most interesting battles in the Napoleonic Wars, I think, is Eylau. So there's that. Did I cover all the Compass stuff? Yes, from Legion Games. Now, I'm being a little optimistic here and in saying that Legion does not normally... It's a little hard to predict exactly what they have coming out, but I'm hoping that a Hot Dry Season will make it out this year. That's Pat Mullen's game. It's really good. I have some playthrough content of that if you want to go see it. It hasn't made its number yet, but it's pretty close, and I think it can make that number up if a bunch of people go and pre-order it. So I do give it an enthusiastic endorsement. It is an operational Vietnam game, which is a space that we really don't see a lot of games in the first place. And yet there's a lot of interesting operational level things that occurred in the Vietnam War. So I would like to see it and its planned follow-up get released. So go check that out, Legion Wargames. Multi-Man Publishing. So I'm basing these assumptions on some guesswork and on what the official production schedule for the year sounds like, which they have announced in a variety of places, including on social media, but not on their webpage for some reason. So OCS Crimea should make it onto pre-order this year. It might make it out this year. I'm not counting on that, though. I think Crimea looks more like next year, personally. That's just a guess, but that's my guess. However, they have said that the OCS magazine should be out this year, and that's going to have a game in it. Right now, it looks like that game is the Luzon game, the Philippines game that has been in playtesting for a while, which I personally have not helped with, but some of the local folks have. So there's that. And that's going to be an interesting game. Very small, like less than one full map size map, and not very many pieces. It's going to be a very, very tight, small package. If you want small, it's going to be a nice introduction to OCS, and I think that's kind of what they have in mind for it, but it's also not going to show you all the moving parts, which is a thing that we're going to talk about in a little bit. Jeff Beeler mentions the next of my MMP most anticipated, which is BCS Aracore. That should make it out this year according to Multiman's list, and I think I haven't heard that it's like in the final queue. I have heard that from my next one, which is Race for Bastogne. That's a GTS Battle of the Bulge game, not the whole Battle of the Bulge, but a good chunk of it. So that's something that I've been looking forward to for a while. That should make it out this year. That's on my list. I don't know if it's going to be called the Skirmisher. I think they did say it was going to be called Skirmisher issue number 3. That's the Great Campaigns of the American Civil War magazine that hasn't had an issue in quite a number of years. That should be out this year. Hex to Hex, welcome. Hexy's here. Chap Mags, I've already said hello. Vincent Klotzik, welcome to the stream. Thanks everybody for stopping by. We got 116, 119 or something like that watching right now. John Sai, yeah, you could walk the battlefield for OCS Luzon, actually. And for that matter, possibly the new Manila thing that is coming for ASL from MMP, and I think that's going to be out this year too. I haven't pre-ordered that. I might pre-order it. I don't know. It's a huge package. It's a huge map footprint. Counter density is not going to be that high. It's a historical ASL that I'm a little less interested in the topic. I just haven't made a commitment to ordering it so far. But I will order Crimea when it comes out, and whatever else they do for OCS, obviously. And then the Skirmisher, Aracore is already on pre-order, and Race for Bastogne is pre-ordered. I'll have a late copy. John Longshore says he's hoping to see the new Axis Empires, which is a good game, from Decision. They've been delaying that for a couple of years now, and I'm not clear as to what the challenges have been. If the challenge has been that they want to playtest it more than they usually playtest, which is something that they've been trying to do, then I approve wholeheartedly. Great, good on playtesting. I am a fan of playtesting. Stigler got a confirmation from UPS. I've gotten the email from GMT and the email from UPS, and it's the same tracking number. And when I checked it earlier, there was no actual information. It was label created, which may mean that because when I check it, it's 3 hours earlier in California, right? So that might just mean the UPS folks haven't picked it up yet. John Longshore mentions Lock and Load's Glory and Empire. Yeah, that's the game that was previously known as On Battles. Thank God they've changed the name, because that is a completely unworkable title. It's literally impossible to find the frickin' thing, because the title was so generic. There's a lot of these pieces, man. But the game, I don't know that much about it, but the scale is appealing, and the pieces are very attractive. So and Lock and Load, it would be great for Lock and Load to produce a game that I was interested in. I would be delighted were that to occur. Sitting on the pre-order list for ages now has been their edition of Trial of Strength, and I have no visibility on. I haven't talked to David lately, so I just don't know where they are with that. But I'd be interested in that if they're going to release it at some point. Stigler, you could drive down to California Central Valley and pick your stuff up from GMT if you really wanted to. So, Crimea, so Daniel asks, first of all, welcome back, asks if Crimea is a one-mapper. Yes, it is a one-mapper. There's a bit of overlap between it and the Third Winter, and it does include a good chunk of the Kerch Straits. It's a little bit different map layout than the Crimea map from Case Blue. So it is a new map. It's not just the old Case Blue map, but it is a one-map game. Sagacious Hamster, Operation Theseus from VUCA Simulations. I don't know anything about that, but it's a cool name. So, very curious. Actually, VUCA's doing some reasonably interesting stuff. And I think although I don't own anything from them yet, I do anticipate that will change at some point. Interesting. But it has not changed yet. Thomas Bandy mentions that there's only 6 likes so far. That's not okay. Go fix that. Everybody can go fix that right now. Just click the little thumbs up thing. It's all good. Stigler says that Trial of Strength may need to be renamed Trial of Infinite Patience. My patience is slightly less. I'm not the world's most patient person, right? I'm trying not to be a big whiner about the GMT things. Like, oh, these guys got the game already. I don't want to do that. So, but man, it's hard. Sometimes it's hard. It was hard to not whine publicly about they haven't shipped my stuff yet. So, and that's what it would be, whining. And nobody likes a whiner. So, Jeff Beeler, OCS Italy. So, the semifinal map has not yet been started. I can verify that for you. So they don't have like a real playtest map yet. But I think we will have that into actual playtesting by the end of the year. I think that's a pretty safe bet. And we'll ask the OCS team these specific questions when we get them on the show. I will probably do that as a separate thing and not do that on the Monday night show, by the way. All right, so now we gotta bag these up. So I have just finished the NATO disruption markers. These are basically hits that you put on units. Okay. So, John Sly says it takes 8 weeks to get stuff from California. That's really not too bad, considering it's got to cross a rather large ocean to get there. So, one thing that I do when I use these tiny baggies, these are the Walmart baggies, these are the best baggies I've found for wargaming, is I have a little hole puncher, and I just clip a tiny bit of the corner out. And it doesn't actually remove anything at all. The corner's still there, but it will damage the corner enough so that air can escape, which I prefer. OCS Italy will have a bunch of Canadians in it, so there's that, and Brazilians, right? This may be the first appearance of the Brazilians in OCS. That is possible. Did I cover everything? I did cover all of my stuff. So let me talk real quickly about. I haven't actually gotten any OCS training video stuff done since leaving for Winterfest, so just to get that out of the way. However, the next event on our schedule is Buckeye Game Fest in April. So the official convention start date is April 7th. That's a Thursday. The War Room which does cost a little extra, but you're paying a little extra to get 3 extra days. Starts on Monday. And I will be working on OCS tutorial stuff because one of the things I am doing is 2 sessions of OCS boot camp. So I'll have the ability to get as many as 4 people on each table, and I can run more of it should that be warranted or requested. And I will walk people through playing OCS, and it should be great. So anybody that wants to come, let us know. There's a bunch of stuff that's planned. There's a big Labatt game planned, but that's already, there's no free spots for that. That's already populated. There's going to be the Song for War folks are going to be there showing their game off. There's going to be open wargaming. The Players Aid guys are going to be there. They are going to run some coin teach and plays, which was a thing that I am pleased I didn't have to suggest to them. They came up with the idea on their own. Had they not, I would have suggested it. And there's probably going to be some kind of big multiplayer wargaming type thing. Don't know what that's going to be yet. Could be Angola, could be Fire in the Lake, could be something else. I have no idea. Tony Mammal says, do I expect Great Battles of Caesar to be better than Alexander was? Or more of the same? I mean, the Roman battles are different, quite different than the Greek battles, right? In Alexander, you have a wide variety of different forces. I mean, you kind of got Greeks on one side in almost all the battles, but the forces opposing the Greeks are of a lot of different types from a lot of different parts of the world. That's true of some of the Roman stuff, but not all of it. The Caesar, in particular, will cover the Civil Wars, which means there's going to be some Caesar versus Pompey stuff, which is Roman legions versus Roman legions. Now, some people don't like that because they think it's boring, and some people do like that because they see them as relatively evenly matched battles, which is true, right? So the complexion, I mean, if you're just bored with GBOH, then maybe you don't need it, but I'm a sucker for more Roman stuff, and it is going to have, although I have Great Battles of Julius Caesar in the old edition, and I have Caesar Conquest of Gaul, I don't have all of the expansions for either, at least for Caesar Conquest of Gaul. So I am very much looking forward to that, and that's why it was on my list. So Marty mentions that not every campaign makes sense for OCS. Yeah, and I think, for example, Italy is a challenging topic for OCS because, for exactly the reason that was mentioned here, is that it's going to be a grinding positional campaign, and a lot of people who are attracted to OCS for the big sweeping armored movements are not going to see that in Italy and are going to find it dull. I, on the other hand, think I will enjoy it, so I'm a guaranteed sale for OCS Italy. And I know that by various OCS development teams, it has been something that's been worked on in the past. I'm trying to figure out how I'm doing this exactly, but hopefully they can actually bring it to market in this case. And like I said, I think there's they're working on a real playtest map so it can get full playtesting. So I feel pretty good about what I'm hearing so far. That said, it might not be for everybody, and I think that's a fair statement. Drew Ditterer, welcome back to the stream. Stigler hates Ancients too. So, I mean, you got to make decisions, right, about what you're going to be into, right, as a content creator, but also as just a gamer. I mean, I literally can't be into every topic. I'm already into too many topics, and I already have bandwidth problems in terms of getting into stuff. I started reading Exalted the other day. I'm like, oh my god, I thought I eliminated this from my rotation. Now, I'm not really thinking about running it, but it's a hoot to read. And so, you got to be cognizant of bandwidth, and you got to make decisions about what you're going to be into and what you simply do not have time to get into. So there is at least one battle, one GBOH game with Hittite battles in it, which is Chariots of Fire, which is a pretty interesting one, actually. So, and money's a factor too, right? I say bandwidth, but, you can't afford to buy all this stuff. It just happened to be that I could afford to take the $400 hit when GMT billed for all this stuff. And, it was still a really big hit. I mean, I knew it was coming. GMT's communication is almost always really good about that. So, it wasn't a surprise or a shock or anything like that. So, had it been a surprise, we might have had a big issue. Empty counter sheet, that's a plus. Where's the other counter sheets? Down here. I'm really trying to get this done tonight. Jeff Beeler, other than Red Dust Rebellion, are there any interesting science fiction games coming out? So, apparently the sci-fi games are off the immediate table for Compass to reprint, which is unfortunate considering that a couple of those things are games that people keep asking for, like Belter. I do feel that Belter needs a bunch of work to bring it up to modern standards, and I like Belter a lot. But it really does need some work to bring it up to modern standards. Fifth Frontier War, again, I like it, in principle, but it's, again, needs a lot of work to bring it up to the standards of modern playability on its own, as opposed to being played alongside an RPG campaign. Stigler likes Flat Top, but Stigler is right to like Flat Top. It's one of the greatest war games ever made. So I think I might have said this last week. At this point, I kind of feel like my favorite game from Avalon Hill is Flat Top. I think that's true. Now, yeah, I can't think of anything that I would put over it, to be honest. I think it's that good. It's not a game for everybody, right? People don't like the paperwork. Sometimes, certainly, if you require a solitaire experience, then Flat Top's not for you. We have dropped, because they keep popping out of the sheets, we've just dropped a bunch of counters on there's some more on the floor. Okay. All right, so let's not complain about Compass's die cutting anymore. That is not a complaint that I need to make. Chim812, first of all, welcome back to the stream. So they have actually said that they expect a reprint of Hakapala to show up for pre-order this year. I have Hakapala, so unless it's got some kind of absolutely gonzo shit in it that the previous version didn't have, or unless it fixes the absolutely gonzo fins, which I don't expect it to do, then I don't need it personally. However, if they do a new version of Doomed Battalions, I will grab it. My version of Doomed Battalions is the Avalon Hill version. So it's literally the only piece of stuff that's not up, that I have anymore, that's not up to the current standards. So last game for Space Empires. I don't think that's going to make it this year. That's a guess, right? That's not inside info. But I don't think that's going to make it this year. I think anything that isn't really close to going to the printer right now from GMT is probably not making it this year. I could be wrong. I'll be happy to be wrong. So, been wrong before. Spectacularly wrong, as it happens. So, but I haven't heard anything about Doom Battalion's reprint. I do imagine that it will happen eventually, though. So, Doug Sunseth, welcome back, says that he has very little interest in anything between Napoleonics and World War II, but Ancients through Renaissance are fascinating. So is that between Napoleonics and World War II inclusive of both, or what? Because, boy, I'd save a ton of money on Wargames if I wasn't into World War II, right? They have, I think, overpowered the Finns to answer what John Longshore is saying, and to give you a little more background about my crack about the Finns being a little wacky. I believe they have overpowered the Finns. Now, how often are you going to play Finns? Probably not that often, but I do believe that they're just a bit much. So, then again, maybe we do the Ukrainians next, and they can be superpowered demigods like the Finns. So we're really not going to talk about that either, I'm afraid. So, I got opinions on that, but what I don't want to do is mistakenly amplify something that I might have read or seen that turns out to be bullshit, and contribute to the environment of bullshit, because we got enough of that. There's enough bullshit to go around. So, okay, so Doug clarifies that he is interested in Napoleonics and World War II, but not in American Civil War, Crimea, World War I, and whatever else. So whatever else falls between, rather a lot falls between Napoleonics and World War II, but including World War I, including American Civil War, including Franco-Prussian War, and a variety of other, Crimean War II, Boer War, a variety of other things, some of which have gotten some attention in wargaming, but I'm waiting to be challenged on my statement that there's more World War II games released every year than everything else put together. I think the reason I'm not challenged on that statement is because it's true. Brant of Brant and Company is here. From the Armchair Dragons, and Mo from Mo's Game Table. Mo's got a very fine, thorough unboxing of the Third World War that released on his channel today. So if you haven't watched mine, go check that out. Mo does a lot more to go through every single of the 17 million player aids that are included in the box. So, there's people, Brant's not into Civil War, American Civil War either. There's a lot of people that are just not into it. And that's fine. Like I said, you got to make decisions based on money or time or attention span or whatever, that what you're going to be into and what you're not going to be into. For example, just to name, I think I have one Franco-Prussian War game, which is SPI's Franco-Prussian War. I think I have 0 Arab-Israeli war games. I think that's correct. And I've been very resistant to getting into Arab-Israeli war games because there's quite a few of them, actually, and some of them look like they're kind of good. And it is supposed to be an interesting conflict, but I don't have the bandwidth for it. So if you're looking for Arab-Israeli war content, maybe you're not looking in the right place here today. So, 1 or 2 player aids. There's so much in this box. I was looking through it again to try and take it apart to get it ready to finish clipping it. We're really trying to get it all done here. So after what's in the box right now, all we have left are these markers. A bunch just fell out of the sheet. So... It's not that hard to play. This is not, the Third World War is not that, it's not simple, but it's not that complicated. There's a lot of player aids because there's setup charts for every single scenario, and that actually eats up probably 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch of space in this box. So, John Launcher says he's been watching the American Civil War series on the Discovery Channel. So it comes on right after Pawn Stars and right before Ancient Aliens. Tom Borman has the Battle Line version of Flat Top. We got a local to Winterfest, let me put it that way, who says he wants to redo maps for Flat Top, which, boy, it would be very easy. I could make nicer looking maps than the Flat Top maps, frankly. And I am not good at making maps. So, but they're really pretty bad. I mean, our artist guy was like, they did this with a Sharpie, man. You can look. These are Sharpie lines. And I think he's probably not wrong. You could, if you were so inclined, I do think you could get away with not clipping these, particularly if you cut them out of the sheets. They don't have, I don't know if you can really see that, but they don't really have big dog ears. But there's a little bit of dog ears. I clip everything. So it is not a question I ask. Unless, I'm actually a little concerned about not Russian campaign, but Russia Besieged, because it's got those really thick counters that Compass was doing for a little while, and those actually might have trouble fitting in any of my clippers. I don't know yet. And then I remembered just how brutal on my wrist was clipping, not Fall Blau, but the Fall Blau companion game. That I'm reluctant, and maybe I'm just going to cut those out with a rotary cutter and call it a day. That is something that could happen with Russia Besieged. Mickey, those rights presumably reside with Hasbro. However, if somebody wants to revisit the idea of Flat Top, you could easily do that without necessarily the rights. You just have to call it something other than Flat Top. And in fact, the game Under the Southern Cross or Beneath the Southern Cross, there's 2 games in preparation. One is Under the Southern Cross, the other is Beneath the Southern Cross. One is a Flying Colors series game, the other is a Flat Top on Steroids game. I can never remember which one is which. So I'm going to be safe because I'm probably buying both of them. So we're good on that. MMP SAR game. I'm curious to see. I think we said we were going to see the GTS magazine up for pre-order this year, and that's going to have the SAR game in it. So I'm obviously going to buy that as well. Mark McNair picked up Bitter Woods recently. So which Bitter Woods? Is that the Avalon Hill Bitter Woods, or the Compass Bitter Woods, or the L2 Bitter Woods, or the more recent reprint of Bitter Woods from Compass, which might be thicker counters? I'm not sure. Mo says call it level surface instead of flat top. What would tabula? That tabula rasa means blank slate, pretty much. So Fast Heinz, great question on roads to Leningrad. Bill Thomas, if you're watching, call up Vance von Boris and tell him you want to publish Vance's game Roads to Leningrad, because it is a magnificent game, and I'm very disappointed that the reprint did not do well on GMT's P500 and GMT dropped it. That's unfortunate, but GMT's got to make those calls sometimes, and if making that call frees it up to get published elsewhere, I'm sure GMT would be happy to oblige. So get on that, Bill. Dan Webb says there's a copy of Flat Top on Geek Market for $13 plus shipping. Jesus, that's practically free. Now, the box might be also flat. That box tended to wear very badly. Even my box, and I keep my stuff in very good shape. Mine's unpunched. That box did not wear very well. Even mine has 2 blown corners, and I hate friggin' blown corners. I will fix blown corners. They're easy enough to fix with some paper and some white glue. I don't make a big project out of it, but it's easy enough to, and some binder clips. It's easy enough to fix. So Perfidious Albion says that the companion game CV was the same system on the Battle of Midway. So there was a Midway scenario for Flat Top that was released in the general, and I think some other additional scenarios as well. Doug's right that all of those Avalon Hill flats were dodgy boxes that didn't wear well, as any flat box. But Flat Top specifically, because there was literally no way you could get it back into the box. I am not sure by what black magic the shit was originally packed in the box in the first place. My copy is unpunched. I couldn't replace it in the box. It was just impossible. So, and if the box is bulging, then it's more susceptible to breakage and corner damage. So. Jeff Beeler says double blind is the best way to play naval games from tactical to strategic, and so speaking of double blind, since we're talking, of course I buried it under Third World War. So I got this, the flight. I'm not going to try to pronounce the French. The Flight of the Eagle. This is basically like a Kriegspiel system. From Pratzen Editions, Jim Ozarski, who of course is the go-to guy to answer Napoleonic questions and Kriegspiel questions, recommends this very highly. I got this a box set. It was in the shrink wrap with a slight corner ding for $15 on eBay. So you can get this first volume of Flight of the Eagle pretty cheaply. And yes, it is in English. There's French on the back of the box. So this is like, it's not like a map war game. It's a Kriegspiel system. It's played double blind with a referee. I didn't. A very small number of things like that have passed through my hands over the years, and I actually designed one myself, a fantasy one, many years ago, and ran it as a refereed thing, and it was sort of successful. It was a bit half baked, to be honest, but I really haven't had anything like this to refer to in decades. So, after hearing for the millionth time Jim talk about it, so this is not for me. This thing. There is a miniatures rule set that goes along with this, but this is not miniatures. This is the Kriegspiel stuff. There'll be a unboxing probably this week for it. We'll see. The unboxing schedule, there'll be an unboxing on Thursday, but the unboxing schedule is a little bit in flux right now. Oh, cool. Brant says they'll be doing double blind Second World War at sea at Origins this summer. That is fantastic. The Battle Line flat top is in the same flat box of pretty much exactly the same style as the Avalon Hill one, but the box itself might have been on better cardboard. That's possible. There's something. Anyway, that is not a piece of counter, so we're all good. So the Battleline flat top does not have mounted maps, actually. Oh, that's a good point. That may be why the Battleline flat top fits a little more comfortably in the box. That's possible. That said, I've never seen a Battleline flat top without a flattened box either. So there's that. If you haven't seen the after action report, it's not a super long video. Go check out the after action report from Winterfest. We had a great time playing it. Do let me know if there's any streaming hiccups with the stream, because I'm seeing. Looks like we're having some wee issues here. But I don't know. Maybe it's fine. Now, the Avalon Hill, I can vouch for this, because I have the Avalon Hill version, and it does have mounted maps. And Perfidious Albion answers my question of who did CV Yaquinto, because it was an Avalon Hill. And I knew it wasn't... I think there's an SPI game. It might have been a Decision, actually, game called CV as well. But that's a different product, assuming I'm remembering that correctly. E4 Airman, welcome back. Found a copy of Gulf War by Frank Chadwick's GDW. Very, a whole bunch of stuff coming back from them via Compass, starting with Third World War here. Perfidious Albion, I mean, we could honestly, and maybe that'll be what we talk about with Dan this week, because that'd be a good topic for that. Then again, it would be a topic that we'd cover in 5 minutes, and then we move on to Hookers and Blow. But a lot of the double-blind features of Flat Top is built into the game, so you do not need to play it with a referee. A lot of the magic of Flat Top still happens with two opposed players. And S. Craig Taylor was the designer, magnificent designer. And if you don't know, the at least for Flat Top, the Battle Line Flat Top counters were magnificently thick. These are pretty thick, these Third World War counters from Compass, and the Battle Line counters are at least half again this thick, and maybe as thick as twice as thick. They're absolutely bananas. Tom Borman says he's got a Battle Line flat top with mounted maps. I wonder if that somebody subbed in the Avalon Hill maps. The art is different on the two maps, right? The Avalon Hill maps are a little nicer. They're still not that great as far as the art goes, but they're a little less Sharpie-ish than the Battle Line maps are. Then again, the maps are completely functional. This is a complaint that, don't take it too seriously. But it doesn't look like... Yeah, Tokyo Express was Victory Games, and I've actually got that. I haven't actually played it. Carrier. And I think Tokyo Express were done by John Southard, though. Mo's Game Table... the Battle Line counters are about as thick as the Blue Panther counters. I think, I didn't get my micrometer out or anything, but it's real close. Perfidious Albion Bomber. Okay. That'd be interesting. Burning Blue is a really pretty cool game, I think. One of these days, I think Compass is bringing back Tokyo Express, so I just get it from them. But I have the original too. So I've talked about this before about the people I was playing with back in the '90s had a generally quite low opinion of Victory Games in general. So it was a bit surprising to me to come back to Wargaming years and years later and find out that many of their games are absolutely revered nowadays. And having looked at a lot of them now and having played several, I think the people that revere them were right. Victory Games did a lot of really good stuff. So, and that's of course part of the reason why we're seeing so many Victory Games come back is they did good games. If they were turds, nobody would be interested. Nobody's talking about bringing back Druid, for example, from West End Games. Richard Berg game, right? Legendary designer, not his best effort, right? Nobody's talking about bringing that back. John Madison, welcome back. Is A.H. Bismarck similar to Flat Top? It's got some significant similarities. I would say it's a little more similar to Second World War at Sea. And if you'd played all three, you'd see why I say that, because it's got one of those brick grid maps. Flat Top doesn't use squares, and Bismarck does, but that is topologically a hex grid, so I don't know that I care, other than that it's ugly. Second World War at Sea does have that brick grid too. And it's still ugly. Not a big fan of Avalanche Press's maps. Their counters are generally nice, but their maps are ghastly. They are different systems, but like I said, there are similarities there. But, I mean, there's similarities because they're similar topics in the sense of fog of war is the literally most important thing happening in those games. Perfidious Albion says that Bismarck is... I do agree that it is probably directly descended from Jutland. I think that's a correct statement. Jeff Beeler asks about smaller publisher games that folks looking forward to. I looked at Revolution Games, and they don't have any pre-orders up on their site right now. Clash of Arms has La Bataille de la Mont Saint-Jean, which is their big Waterloo game. That might make it out this year. I don't know. I haven't actually checked with the Labatt people, although I can ask. That is still on pre-order, and you know, I'm not buying it, but I bet it'll look really nice, and it might even have a Rick Barber map too. So, all right, I'm not sure what E4 Airman is saying here. There's Winner's Victory, which we've already mentioned, from New England Simulations. John Longshore mentions the Compass Games survey on I think it was which GDW games would you like us to redo, but what was actually in the poll was which GDW Frank Chadwick games would you like us to redo. And I did take the survey as well. I think I voted for 1941, 1942, and a couple of other things. Mickey says that the combat system in Bismarck is outstanding. I'd actually like to try Bismarck. A glorious chance. A glorious chance. Mo, who's putting out a glorious chance? Remind me. Charles Latorra did up a video on Bismarck. I need to see that, obviously. Jason LaRiviere, I have not seen the Batman yet. It's supposed to be really good, from what I understand. It's actually kind of a detective movie where, you know, you finally get to see the detective Batman on screen. Perfidious Albion, you know, I don't remember seeing the Assault series, Assault Boots and Saddles, that series. Assault Boots and Saddles, Bundeswehr. There was a Reinforcements pack, and there was a fourth boxed game in the series. I had a couple of those. I didn't have them all. I'll let Mo answer that. I remember hearing about A Glorious Chance, and I remember being interested, and I have forgotten what it is. So, Custer61 mentions, and Octavian, both of you welcome to the stream. Please do remember to subscribe if you are not already subscribed. Chances are Chieftain. Vince mentions Chieftain, which was the fourth game in the Assault series. So, it's got a good title, though. If I didn't mention it, I think I did forget to mention another thing on my most anticipated list that I think there's a good chance of coming out this year is the Musket and Pike Dual Pack from Ben Hall and GMT. So let me ask a question that it's going to sound backhanded, and I don't 100% mean it that way. What was the last game that Avalanche Press released, and when was that? Because I know there's a bunch of stuff that they've been talking about for a while that's not out yet. So Mo says that A Glorious Chance is a solo game. Lake Ontario in 1813. Play as either U.S. or the British side. Okay, I don't need that. I will say that. On the other hand, I am relative. I don't know if it's going to be out this year or not, although I can find out. I do am very interested in Ken Reppel's 1812 that's coming from Compass this year. That is a small rock that ended up somehow. Steve Jackson Games. Now, see, if One True Phlegm mentions the one that I said, and I said this in the Facebook thread, but I didn't say it in the poll because it wasn't an option. Imperium. I think Imperium is, of like the Traveler-related sci-fi war games, Imperium is the one that you could easily just say, we're going to put this out, we're going to change nothing except the graphics, and it'll be great. You could totally do that with Imperium. Based on current demand, maybe you'd want to come up with a solo mechanism or something like that. But other than that, you could re-release Imperium as is tomorrow, and it would still be a great game. But that's not a Frank Chadwick game. That license for that resides with Mark Miller, and I don't know if Compass has had any discussions with Mark or not. So. Now, I do have the Imperium Third Millennium from Avalanche, and I don't think it's as bad as people think, but they tried to add a bunch of stuff that added complexity but didn't really work, so it kind of broke it. I think it's probably fixable, but maybe you just play Imperium, and you'd be fine. Western Front Ace also, I don't know when that's coming out. That might be coming out this year. That's Greg Smith's solitaire World War I dogfighting game. That's probably going to be a blast, to be honest. Air and Armor's probably coming out this year, too. I have intentionally avoided talking to Bruce Maxwell about Air and Armor, because if I have a conversation with Bruce about Air and Armor, then I'm going to want to buy the damn thing. And I don't want to buy the damn thing right now. So, because Bruce has infectious enthusiasm for his stuff, and he's a good designer. So, I am excited about War for America. I am actually more intrigued by Revolutionary War stuff than I have been in the past, to the point where I have 5 or 6 or 7 or something like that Rev War games at this point. So that's one of my relatively highly anticipated games from Compass. It might have been one of my highly anticipated games from Compass for last year, too. But last year got screwed up. And the year before, really. John Madison misses Dawn Patrol. I don't, but I had I don't want to say bad experience. Dawn Patrol wasn't the game I thought I was buying at the time. It was marketed as a role-playing game. It said role-playing game on the side of the box. It's really not a role-playing game. It's a World War I dogfighting game with campaign rules. That's not a role-playing game. And that was not something that I particularly wanted back in 1982 or whatever it was when I bought it. So, Mo says War for America is going to be excellent. Yeah, I think so. I think Gilbert's got really good design instincts just from watching his videos. I think that's the case. I plan to be very happy with it. We also anticipate that it may be on a table at Buckeye Game Fest. And if that turns out to be the case, then I will probably hover over that quite a bit. So, it's all good. Mickey, thanks for stopping by. If I didn't miss you already, I might have. Perfidious Albion is debating getting into the Doomsday series. I assume that's the Starkweather Doomsday from Compass. The OSS Operational Scale System or Operational Scale Series or whatever it's called. And now that there's been 3 or 4 of those, I think that system is... John, yeah, there's videos coming for Barbarians at the Gates. It looks like... Barbarians at the Gates is another one of those things that... I was like, yeah, I don't know. And then I started looking at it, and I'm like, this looks pretty cool, actually. So, yeah, I think Barbarians at the Gates is going to be something to keep an eye on. And you'll be seeing some videos from Mo and myself on that soonish. I can't tell you exactly when, because we're trying to coordinate it. But soonish, you'll be seeing videos from both of us. You'll be seeing probably the first amateurish video will be by me, and the later but much better produced version will be by Mo. So if it works the way it usually does. Components are really strong in Barbarians at the Gates, and you'll see when you see the unboxing video. Components are really strong. It looks like it's a Herman-esque point-to-point CDG. So think Paths of Glory or For the People, except late 4th and 5th century Western Roman Empire, which is not a topic. I mean, we've seen a lot of Roman games, but I don't know that I can recall a strategic level game of Roman stuff that really deals with the final collapse of the Roman Empire in the West. John Stanley asked GMT and the expansion for Death Valley coming out. So Stigler seems to be... Stigler, you can correct me if I'm wrong about this, but he seems to think it will be out this year. And I think it's already at the printer, and if that's the case, then yeah, I think it'll be out this year. Achilles, is there an OCS version for a modern post-Korea conflict? No, there isn't. OCS has done nothing, even though when originally published, the notional idea that it was going to be mid-century, so presumably that includes at least Korea and maybe World War I stuff, it has never... well, there is a Korean War game, I shouldn't say. There's nothing but World War II, but everything else has been World War II. So if you're looking for modern... And to be honest, if you're looking for modern, I think you're better off looking elsewhere. And, man, there's a lot of options right now. Modern. You're looking at the Next War series from GMT. If you're looking for, pre-modern, Cold War gone hot stuff, then there's an absolute ton of content for you from a variety of people. So, John, the titles are in French, and they're all similar. So I think the miniatures rules have a very similar name. Jim Ozarski. So yes, we will have. I've already filmed the unboxing video, so we will be having an unboxing video of that. And maybe we can even do a follow-up video on that, which I will undoubtedly hassle you about should it occur. There is a change to the counter design in the Death Valley expansion. That's interesting. I'll say that when we start talking about the comparison between Line of Battle and Great Battles of the American Civil War, I prefer, and it's not that close, the Great Battles of the American Civil War counters over the Line of Battle counters. They're easier to read, they're easier to deal with, they're easier to parse the information on them. I don't despise the Line of Battle counters, but the GBACW counters are better. The maps are a little closer. John Madison, that is almost certainly, what's it called? That's almost certainly the one from Azure Wish. I'm trying to, Rosia 1917, I think is the name of it. That sounds like that's what that is. Then again, there may have been a vibrant, Russian Civil War series from the various French publishers. Nordic Maelstrom used to wargame with Frank Chadwick. I know that John Madison, our man in Amsterdam here, used to work for GDW too in the warehouse. So, SCS Arab Israeli game. There is one. It's Yom Kippur. Is it Yom Kippur? I think so. Now, I think the maps are between the two, and I've said all this before, between the two series, GBACW and Line of Battle, I think the maps are closer. I still lean a bit towards GBACW, not artistically, where I think they're about even, but there are fewer elevation levels in the GBACW system. And I believe Line of Battle has a bit overdone it on the topic of elevation levels. Yeah, Heights of Courage is the other one that I'm thinking of. Thank you, guys. John Sy, Jeff Taylor, John Stanley, always putting that in. I don't agree with Stigler on this MMP assertion, as we've also covered many times, because whenever he comes up with this, he's always specifically talking about Dean's graphic design and not MMP in general. Nordic Maelstrom asks about ASL starter kits. Are the rules in the starter kits the same information you would get from the Pocket Rulebook? So no, the Pocket Rulebook is full ASL. It's not the starter kit system. The starter kit system is considerably condensed from full ASL. However, there's little or nothing that's like a contradiction between the two systems. There's really just a lot of stuff that's removed from full ASL to turn it into starter kit. Now, in some cases, that actually does change your play, right? If you're not playing with concealment, that changes your play. If you're not playing with bypass movement or snipers, that changes your play. And those are three kind of big infantry rules that aren't in starter kit, but they are in full ASL. So if the question is motivated by the question of, can I start with the starter kit and then graduate to full ASL via the Pocket Rulebook, then yeah. But the Pocket Rulebook is just the big ASL rulebook. It's just in a paperback book instead of a loose leaf format. It's not, and lacks Chapter H. Perfidious Albion, I agree with you. I think you are better. I mean, by all means, get the Pocket Rulebook if you want it. But I think you are better off getting the electronic version, assuming you have a device to use it on, and I'm talking about a tablet. I think on a phone it would be pretty inconvenient. Then yes, I think you're better off with the electronic version. And you could zoom and search and do all the electronic stuff, right, with the electronic version that you can't do with the paperback. And eventually they'll change the paperback, they'll change a rule, and they'll update the electronic version, and you can download the update, and you'll have to wait years to get a new reprint of the Pocket Rulebook. So Jeff Beeler asks, should bypass movement be a thing in ASL? Maybe not. But it is. So, I mean, if you're going to do full ASL, then it is a thing that you have to know. Alan Salazar asks about Steel Inferno. I can tell you it's very highly regarded. It's by a very highly regarded designer. But I haven't played it. It's supposed to be really good. That is what I can tell you about Steel Inferno. The bundle ships with Chapter H, yeah, but that's not the Pocket Rulebook. That's its own book. And this is the first we've seen of a Pocket Chapter H. And at this point, the Pocket Chapter H should be pretty bulletproof as far as Errata is concerned. Should be. Nordic Maelstrom asks, now this is also a very good question. Is the Avalon Hill ASL rules different from the MMP ASL rules? So the short answer is yes, but most of the differences are really small clarifications. If you are asking because you have an Avalon Hill rulebook and you want to know whether the old Avalon Hill ASL rulebook, and you want to know whether you need the new one, my answer to that is probably not. I think you can be just perfectly happy with the old Avalon Hill rulebook. I think you're fine. There are some differences. I don't think the differences amount to all that much. For most play, right? I mean, so many of those ASL rules in that rulebook are rules for weird edge cases anyway. And if you're playing a scenario in which one of those edge cases comes up a lot, then maybe it's important. But generally speaking, it's not something I'd lose any sleep over. October War, I apparently conflated it with something else. I heard it was bad, or I thought I remembered that I heard it was bad, and then a bunch of people corrected me and said, no, it's actually great. And I do actually, good call to mention that, because I do have a copy of October War. So, well, I mean, the Avalon Hill one's been out of print for decades, but if you can get a copy of it cheap, sure, yeah. If you get a copy for $40, $30, something like that, yeah, I'd go for that. Or you could just get the pocket rulebook, or you can spend, I think it's $40 or $50 on the electronic version. I'm a big fan of the electronic rulebooks. I don't necessarily like them at the table, but for like rules reading, which is really not something you do with ASL, then I do prefer a physical rulebook. Or for rules reading, I prefer the electronic version. For reference at the table, I prefer the physical rulebook. But for ASL specifically, because it's got a 1,000,000-page rulebook, I'd probably be willing to just put up with that and use the electronic version, you know, if I were playing ASL. And then, you know, up until, like, literally the current new version of Yanks is probably going to have those same replacement pages in it. And that is, so Perfidious Albion, so the new version of Armies of Oblivion had new pages in it. The new version of Hollow Legions had new pages in it. The new version of Rising Sun had new pages in it that replaced old pages. Not just the new material, but errata pages. So the same problem still applies, where if you missed a product, you might be missing some theoretically vital piece of errata. This is why one reason why I think people should, if people are asking me for an opinion, which, you know, maybe you shouldn't, but if you're asking me for an opinion about which ASL rules product you should buy, unless you're just going to play Starter Kit, in which case just buy the Starter Kit, then I'm going to tell you the electronic version. E-Rulebooks are great when playing over Vassal, that's true. And I will say, too, that MMP, this isn't just notional, MMP is keeping up with updating that electronic rulebook. Yeah, you just buy it through DriveThruRPG. You can download it as many times as you want. You just sign into DriveThruRPG and download it again. The Tabletop's Edge, welcome back to the stream. Yes, and he's right. The old squad leader stuff is not exactly ASL compatible. I mean, in a lot of cases, you can just play it and it pretty much works fine. But all those old squad leader scenarios were redone at various times in various publications. So I would use the ASL versions of those scenarios rather than the squad leader versions of those scenarios. Nordic Maelstrom, if you want to start with the Pacific, you want starter kit number 4. I think it's standalone. I think the other starter kits, the other boxed starter kits definitely are, and I think that number 4 is as well. So you can absolutely, if that's true, and if it's not true, then I guess get starter kit number 1, and you can get started. Whoops, you can get started with that. A lot of people really prefer the Pacific stuff in ASL too. Stigler says you should be able to get October War for pretty cheap, and he's right. You can. It's you can get a punched copy of it for under $20. No problem. So, I wonder if well, nobody's complaining, so I guess it's fine. One True Flem says he took bypass movement out of Denant, which is the historical ASL module that is included in the current edition of Croix de Guerre, which is the French module. I think that I think that's too high for October War. I think $70, even a mint condition unpunched copy, I think $70 is too high. So, which is, they're not going to price everything at a price I'd pay. So, and that's fine. They've got plenty of stuff at good. I mentioned this in a response to a comment the other day. They got plenty of stuff at good prices, just maybe not the specific thing you're looking at that particular time, which maybe they want too much for. But I've certainly bought plenty of stuff from them at good prices. So, Peter Berg says he purchases all the Lone Canuck product for ASL. I have successfully not bought any third-party ASL product. I said I wasn't going to, and I still haven't to this point. That said, that Prokhorovka set from Advancing Fire looks really nice. It's really quite nice. eBay, just be patient. If you're going to go with eBay, just be patient. I think I need to be done. As much as I'm not done yet. I think I need to be done clipping this for tonight. My face is starting to hurt. Yeah, but Stegler, nobody's forcing anybody to pay any particular price that they didn't think was reasonable. So, John Longshore mentions Lefranc Terreur, which is another third-party ASL group. I've never really looked at anything of theirs. Well, I've never owned anything of theirs. I think I've done some buddy unboxings of a couple of their things, and they also have quite a good reputation. Bounding Fire, same thing. Bounding Fire has a good reputation as well. They're just falling out everywhere here. So it looks like I have roughly a sheet and a half left. We will not be, I said this before, but we will not be clipping this next week on this show. I'm going to have this finished by then. It's not that much more to do. It's just that I'm kind of sick of, I'm literally sick of looking at it. So, Iggy Crichton says the rat charts are better than the ASL pocket charts. Those are the new ASL pocket charts. I've seen those on video. I'd be curious to handle them, but the rat charts are really nice. And I think that if I had handled the pocket charts, I would just say this, but I haven't, so I don't think I can. But I think you're right. I think the rat charts are going to end up being nicer. So, John Madison, what's the most expensive Wargame sold aftermarket? Yeah, I've seen Unpunched Campaign for North Africa for about $1,200. And there have been periods where things like War in the Pacific went for a lot of money. Dog's Breakfast, he means it's garbage. It means it's maybe not worth your time. And you don't really know what you're going to get. Sometimes you get a punch game from eBay and it's just punched and everything's fine. And other times you're just hosed. Somebody bought, this was mentioned on one of the OCS groups, somebody bought an OCS Burma, was missing like one of the counter sheets and one of the maps, and the seller just said, well, as is, sorry. And, it wasn't free. If I wanted to play with 100 T-34s, I would probably do it in Panzerblitz. That's the right system to do that in. Krusty Captain says Case Blue went for $830. That might be as high as I've seen Case Blue go for. And I think that's too high, too. But that's less about me thinking that it's an unfair price than it is a price I'm not personally willing to pay, right? If that's what the market says, well, that's too bad it's that expensive. I'm not paying that. But I have had good luck on eBay, but I'm super selective about buying stuff on eBay. I bought this Flight of the Eagle on eBay. It was $15 plus like $12 shipping, and I got it like a week later. Even other unpunched shrink wrap copies don't go for more than about $40, and I think you can buy them from Clash of Arms too for about $40. But you can only get this first set, not volumes 2 or 3. I don't really see those Second World War games go on the secondary market, so I don't think that the supply is sufficient to judge. But based on their retail price, their MSRPs, yeah, they should be going for an awful lot of money. Ooh, Peter Berg says, up against Jim Dunnigan's legendary Up Against the Wall Motherfucker. Published by SPI, according to BGG at least, and I think I've seen a picture of the SPI edition at this point. And there actually was an really early, obviously, SPI edition. $2,500 at Noble Knight. That they have a copy is remarkable. And of course, like the original D&D, if you get like an original brown box D&D, that'll go for well over $2,500 at this point. Yeah, but that wasn't me that had that. That recommendation was made. I would complain through PayPal if I got shafted like that. If somebody's looking for ASL product, like a good place to buy ASL product, then I would send them through Ritterkrieg. They have pretty much all the official stuff, plus a lot of the non-official stuff too. Gamers Armory does as well, if you're looking for an actual brick and mortar store. Yeah, get down and get on the line. Tell them we want to redo the kickstart the deluxe edition of Up Against the Wall Motherfucker. That'll be very popular. Trevor Just, okay, so War of the Ring Collector's Edition. Now, what he's talking about is I forget who the publisher was, whether it was Ares or Fantasy Flight or whoever did one of the editions. That's not the SPI game. That's the miniatures board game, which is actually really pretty good. And they did a collector's edition of it, which is in a box about the size of the inside of a hatchback. It's enormous. It's ludicrously large, and that probably does go for $5,000. But I think that's a bit out of field if we're talking about war games. Jeff Beeler, White Book, that was Gods, Demigods, and Heroes, not Deities and Demigods. And that can be worth a bit of change too, but it was later, and a lot of those books you got to be careful on printings, because those were kept in print till all those were kept in print till the early 80s for contractual reasons. So they could continue to stiff Dave Arneson, and so those didn't go out of print for a long time. They were still in print after I was in the hobby. John Launcher keeps his copy of Case Blue in his Crown Royal bag. Supremacy. Yeah, I have no idea what that would be worth, but I always wanted to play that. We were talking about that at Winterfest. Yeah, it came in a giant... That War of the Ring Collector's Edition came in a giant crate. So Nordic Maelstrom, I have played... most editions of D&D. I've never played White Box, and I have no what gets called White Box now, meaning like pre-Holmes Basic. I have no interest in that. That's super primitive. I there's no appeal for that. I think there's people that play it, good for them, but I'm not interested. D&D is not something I am playing right now or looking to play. But I have played, Moldvay Basic, Mensner Basic, both advanced and all subsequent editions. So the 5th edition is fine. There's nothing really wrong with it. The power curve's, I think, a bit stretched, but that's something that you can fix if you really want to. It's just that other than the fact that it has a big player base, it's easier to get a group, which is not really a big concern on nowadays when you're going to put together a game over the internet anyway, probably. I don't see a necessity for me personally to settle for playing or running D&D. Carl Creeder's looking for Le Grand Guerre. Good luck. It does occasionally show up on eBay. Occasionally. The cool thing about Crown Royal is you get a free bottle of whiskey with the $20 dice bag. There's a lot to like in the various TSR editions, and I think there's a lot more to like about AD&D Second Edition than a lot of people thought at the time, actually, because it's really just First Edition. They eventually put back all the stuff that they took out of it, and it's better organized. Remember the art? They weren't really paying artists; they were paying literally local kids that were playing in their games to do some of the art. Okay. Very little of that really early D&D. There are some exceptions, but very little of that really early D&D art is any good at all. And in fact, the original cover of one of the booklets is lifted directly from a Doctor Strange panel from a few years before that. It's like a literal trace. Jeff says, what would I like to see in Designer Edition Imperium other than improved graphics and an enhanced ground combat module for maps? Well, that is the big thing. I would like to see the ground combat module, which Imperium Third Millennium did, but then it screwed the rest of the game up. So I'd like to see that fixed. And maybe a bigger map. Maybe more of the space on that map I think might be cool. I have an alert set up for Le Grand Guerre as well. I'm probably never going to own a copy, and I'm okay with that. Mega Civilization is mega. Came in a huge wooden suitcase. I think. My feelings toward D&D are complicated, right? I think there's something to like about every edition. Since BX D&D, which by which I mean Moldvay D&D, I think there's reasons to play any version back to Moldvay, and which one you prefer depends on who you talk to, and I'm comfortable with that, right? I'm comfortable saying, not really into that at this point. But then again, I would be approaching it from the standpoint of running it rather than playing in it, and that does make the dynamic a bit different, because it means that some of those things that I would not be willing to deal with as a player, I would be fine with dealing with as a game master. I think the best designed version of D&D, this is an unpopular opinion, I think the best designed version of D&D is 4th edition. It's just the one that, because they designed it completely in a vacuum. That's not really true. It feels like they designed it in a vacuum. That's actually nonsense. They didn't. There's a lot of late 3.5 stuff that went into the thinking that turned into 4th edition D&D. But it's really well designed. It was designed more or less from first principles, even if they did borrow stuff from late 3.5. It just doesn't feel like D&D unless you put that in by hand, which you can do, and some people certainly did. Perfidious Albion says that the Le Grand Guerre box is super flimsy. Yeah, it's got a super weird box. I don't feel good about that box. I'll tell you that. Tomb of Horrors was a turd. I think Tomb of Horrors was one of the worst D&D modules ever published. It is a stunt module. You should never put that in a campaign, ever. It is a stunt module. I think the MMO-ness of D&D 4th edition is overstated, but they also had in mind a virtual tabletop that was going to be something that they did in-house that never materialized for a variety of reasons. And those people who played it on other virtual tabletops like Roll20 or whatever speak very highly of it. People that liked 4th edition liked it a lot. What I was actually sort of intrigued by is the idea of using D&D 4th edition, and there's no way to do this without an enormous amount of work to the extent that you're almost redesigning it from the beginning. I was actually using D&D 4 as a way to run Exalted with a better system. But the power level is wrong. The power scaling is wrong, and you'd have to fix that to make it feel like Exalted. And I think that's way more trouble than I'm going to put in. Let me put it that way. Nordic Maelstrom says he only has 2 tabletop RPGs, Advanced D&D 1E and 2E, which are, the real differences between first edition and second edition AD&D are really, really small. THAC0 is really small. I know they changed some numbers. Some of the specific numbers are different. They took some stuff out of second edition core, but they put it back in later. They added a playable bard instead of the first edition bard, which was kind of a mess that people tried to use it and it never worked unless you just fudged it completely. If you run Tomb of Horrors as a one-shot with pre-gen characters, then it can be fun. But but a lot of people just try to drop it into their campaigns and then they're shocked when they TPK everybody. I will tell you that somebody asked me this. I should mention. I keep forgetting to mention. We do have super chats. So if anybody wants to highlight your question or anything like that, use the super chat. That's much appreciated. If so, I spend probably 80 to 90% of my game time on Wargames rather than RPGs. And that's not necessarily because I've made that decision. It's just that my current batch of friends that I hang out with do Wargames. The batch of people that I did RPGs with are still back up in Cleveland, and I do stuff online with them, and I didn't make it this week, because I felt like garbage yesterday. So LeGrand Gare, so Callendale specifically speaks very highly of LeGrand Gare, okay? And without, you can, I think, run down digital copies of the rules if you want to look them over. I think they're on Consim World. And there's a Vassal module as well. I have the Third Imperium book. It's pretty good. I have the Third Imperium book in electronic format, and it's pretty nice. There's a video on it coming at some point. John Madison asks for $40 or less on a bottle of scotch. $40 is going to depend on where you are and what your prices are. Look for, I like Glenmorangie, and that generally runs under 40, but it depends where you are. Look for Old Pulteney. That's pretty good, and that's normally about $30 a bottle. If you can get Lefroy, if you like peaty scotch, if you can get Lefroy for $40, which you probably can't anymore, I'd go with that. This stuff, Tam Navulin's pretty good for what it costs, which is in, I think, that general neighborhood. I actually don't have everything for Mongoose Traveler 2nd Edition. I've got a lot, but I don't have everything. I really do like Der Weltkrieg, but the scale's very different, right? I mean, it's like a divisional game with an operational feel that you can put the whole thing together if you want. The Grand Gare is meant to be the entire war. Furthermore, I think Balance of Powers is really good. And I would be willing to say, if I never get a copy of Le Grand Gare, I'm okay, because I have Balance of Powers. What did I serve at Winterfest? We did, courtesy of John Longshore, we did the Glenfiddich 15, which we finished. And then we had this Auchentoshan, which I'm going to probably be trying to finish next. It does make the Scotch better if it's pronounced in an authentically Scotch way. A lot of people don't like those maps. You do get used, most people are able to get used to them. Let me put it that way. Mo knows some pretty good Canadian whiskeys too, and the trick with Canadian whiskey is, you can get it cheap, but a lot of times you're buying cheap hooch, right? But there's good selections that are very reasonably priced as well. Hey, I love gin. Good gin. I mean, nobody drinks straight gin. That'd be crazy. But hey, a gin martini ain't much besides straight gin. So, Jeff Beeler asks, what Traveler products are we looking forward to? I'm looking forward to that Fifth Frontier War stuff, which was supposed to be out last year and still isn't out. Other than that, I've backed the Mercenary Kickstarter. I don't think it's all that great, but it's certainly serviceable material. The Journal of the Traveler's Aid Society Kickstarter, I backed that. The big thing I was really pumped about, that I was really waiting for, is the Deep Net Revelation stuff. That got delivered several months ago at this point. And I never got, I never got a video done of that. Vince Ree says you can get Glenlivet 12 for less than $40. I'm not convinced that that's true anymore, but I'd also prefer Old Pulteney over Glenlivet 12. I don't think Glenlivet 12 is all that great. It's not terrible, but I think I would just as soon drink Doers on the Rocks than drink Glenlivet 12 neat. Let me put it that way. Yeah, so they're talking about a whole Fifth Frontier War line of RPG product, and apparently they just didn't get all the legwork done on that last year. So it's still in preparation. Very interested in seeing that. Very interested in seeing what they do with that. But at the same time, I don't have an actual timetable for when that's going to be out. So. A lot of people like Glenlivet. A lot of people swear by Glenlivet. I'm not the world's biggest fan of Glenlivet. It's not awful, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'll take it over Canadian Club, which is an engine degreaser. It doesn't even come with a sweet dice bag like Crown Royal. I've got a bottle of the Crown Royal Rye, which I told myself I'm buying it for the dice bag, and the dice bag is very nice. The Crown Royal's not that good. I may have actually drunk it on stream at one point in the very early shows before I had the card that said what I was drinking. It's suitable for cocktails, let me put it that way. Perfidious Albion. So it is not my understanding that they intend to reprint the Fifth Frontier War board game. But what they want to do is a series of RPG products that revolve in and around the Fifth Frontier War, which I would be delighted to buy. Right. I've got all this stuff plus some additional stuff, plus some more stuff downstairs for Mongoose Traveler's 2nd edition. I don't have everything, but I have quite a bit of it. I don't have all the adventures. I think I have all the hardcovers either on order or already in my hands. That would be kind of cool. You could actually send in a form to GDW to enlist in the Fifth Frontier War back in the day out of JTAS. That was actually pretty cool. The Great Rift set's really nice. The deck plan set, the Element Class Cruisers deck plan set, which is the kind of cruiser that you're flying in Deep Net Revelation too. So if you have that, you can use those huge deck plans if you want to. John Sy said there's a Philippine whiskey that you could pay about $5 for a 700 milliliter bottle. So it's like Jim Beam then, except $18 less. I mean, whiskey is not a uniquely American product, right? There's or even an English-speaking world product. There's a lot of whiskeys being made in different parts of the world. The Japanese have become really good at making whiskey. Some of I don't know if they're all good, but there's some Japanese whiskeys that are really very good. Irish whiskey is, of course, everybody knows about. Canadian, there's good Canadian whiskey out there. You just got to make sure that's what you're buying, and you're not buying the engine degreaser. I've tried Amrut, which is an Indian single malt whiskey, which is great. At least the Amrut that I had was really good. There's a French single malt whiskey called Bastille, which we did not like, and which we then referred to as the French prison whiskey. So not a big fan of that. There's a German whiskey, which I haven't tried, which is probably terrible because the Germans are not good at distilled beverages, in my opinion. Very good at brewed beverages. Distilled beverages, not so much. Please try again, Schnapps guy. Yeah, about Suntory. Suntory is not a brand. It's a company, right, that runs a lot of individual distilleries in Japan or different operations. Yamazaki is one that I think I've had and was very good. I do like a good Irish whiskey. Jeff Beeler says 40 Creek Rye. I've heard that, but I don't see it here. That's the problem. Is a good rye whiskey is actually hard to find in Ohio, to be honest. Which is unfortunate because I do like American rye whiskey. Canadian rye whiskey can be good too, but Canadian rye whiskey just has to have some rye in it, where American rye whiskey has to be at least 51% rye. So there's more. There can be more rye in it. The Canadian rye might have a very small percentage of rye in it, and it might just be corn whiskey. It's possible to make really good 100% corn whiskey. I've got one downstairs that is shockingly good. Pendleton rye is, I think it's Pendleton that I've tried. That's good stuff. Buffalo Trace is good. German wine can be actually really good as well. Not just beer that they're good at. Jameson's Black Barrel, that's pretty good. All the Jameson specialty stuff is actually really good. There's a Jameson Special Reserve that is great. It's great. There's a Pendleton's and a Templeton's, and I'm not sure which one is which. Buffalo Trace is hard to get. Well, maybe it is now. I don't know. But benchmark number 8. Look for benchmark number 8. It's young Buffalo Trace. Runs here in Ohio. Runs about $9 a bottle. So there's that. Wine tends to give me a hangover, not a hangover, but a headache, and I prefer not to. Templeton, Pendleton, I get the two mixed up. There is a Pendleton, I think, as well. Oh, good Lord. That's going to wreck the wine industry if they have to be reliant on British wine. Ruining wine forever. South American wine's pretty good. I had wines I liked from, which is, not that I'm not a big wine guy doesn't mean that I hate all wine. It just means that I tend not to drink very much of it. I've had some pretty good Chilean wine and Argentinian wine. And actually, ice wine is guaranteed to give me a headache. Guaranteed. William Aarons, don't. I mean, I don't care too much, to be honest. Viticulture. There is a brewing, like a beer brewing game that I actually had at one point that I think I picked up back when I was doing home brewing, which has been a while now. Amrut, A-M-R-U-T, is the name of the Indian single malt. It's not that hard to find in the States. It's impossible to find in an Ohio liquor store, but some Indian restaurants have it, and that's where I've had it. Cake Bread Cabernet, no idea. Riesling is a sweet wine, as I recall. We had, somebody had, I had bought another bottle of port from Costco. I bought it random. I was $15, whatever, I'll try it. And I hated it. I've tried port a couple times now, and I hated it. So I'm willing to try it again. If somebody finds one, maybe it'll hit me in the right mood or something, but I just didn't like it. Charles Latorre just got his UPS shipping notification. Awesome. Speaking of that, let's see where we are here. That's very interesting. Let's see if we got actual tracking data on our GMT shipment. Nope. Label created. 1 of 2 piece shipment. No estimated delivery date yet. It often does take a couple of days for UPS to catch up to that. So don't sweat that too much. John Madison asked about Consim Expo in Tempe. I don't know. Well, I'm not going, I can tell you that. This year, that's simply not happening. David Imperato's GMT delivery is supposed to arrive on Wednesday, you lucky punk. Tabletop Edge says that Rieslings are great with spicy food, Asian, and some seafood. That makes sense. John Madison asked if I had to choose between Buckeye, Game Fest, or Consim. I'd rather go to Winterfest. I would choose Winterfest over Consim World in a heartbeat. But as I mentioned, I think there and a couple times elsewhere, there's a big unspoken question there in that the games I want to play are getting played at Winterfest. So to me, it's way cheaper to go to Winterfest than it is to go to Consim World and maybe play the same thing. So between that and Buckeye Game Fest, that's a little different because I'm here, right? I am here in Columbus, Ohio, so it's trivial for me to go to Buckeye Game Fest. I am sure that I would have a better wargaming experience at Consim World Expo than Buckeye Game Fest. But that's because we're not going to play Goss at Buckeye Game Fest. At least how it is right now. We probably will play OCS, every given year, and sometimes there'll be GTS. But my big game rotation is kind of OCS, GTS, BCS, and Goss. And of those, all of those things are things that get played at Winterfest. Only one of those things gets played routinely at Buckeye Game Fest. All of them get played in Tempe. But then you got to think, at best, it's going to cost me $1,500 to go. And it cost me less than a third of that to go to Winterfest. So that's a thing. So Perfidious Albion says, the Polish game publisher, there are a couple of them, think you're putting out a wargame on the current Ukrainian war. I think it's too soon. I think we've got a lot of unreliable bullshit in circulation that I think there's not good analysis yet. We're not going to have really good analysis on it till at least a year after it's over. So if somebody puts out a game on it next month, it's going to be absolutely half-baked. That's my concern. Vince Ree asks about the new Hell's Highway. So yeah, that's a thing. There's a new edition of Hell's Highway coming out from, of all people, New England Simulations, called John Butterfield's Hell's Highway. So that's something to keep an eye on. Casca 666 Longinus says that he got Shiloh. He means Into the Woods, I'm sure. And it's like the second coming of Bloody April. Yeah, literally. It's literally the same. Well, it's the same battle anyway. With much more robust playtesting. Let me put it that way. And nicer components and better graphics and all that stuff. So I'll take the new GBACW system over the old one. So the joke was that those of us who hadn't gotten our shipping notifications yet hadn't got them because the forklift at GMT's warehouse broke. So they weren't able to pick the box up. Oh, Marty's got it now. That's cool. I assume a playtest copy. Next, we're Ukraine. Yeah, so I guess somebody mentioned this, and I'm not sure if this makes sense, but they said the scale would have to change from the Next War series to really do the Ukraine correctly. And that's true. Ukraine's a pretty big place. Bigger than the area you got in Next War Poland, that's for sure. Hell's Highway was from Victory Games, not SPI. Highway to the Reich was from SPI, and by all accounts, it had major problems in both its original and second edition. And those problems were inherited by the Decision Games reprint as well. So the new Army Group Center is shipping. I got my shipping notification yesterday for all 7 things that are coming. So now I don't know if I'm going to buy Winter's Victory or not, but I am almost certain to buy Highway to the Reich because I'm a big Market Garden person. So Nordic Maelstrom asks, what historical period for Wargames do I like the most? So it so happens... do I have a pie chart of this? I don't. That's disappointing. I'll show you the pie chart for this thing, though. So this is the pie chart for games by publisher. I don't know why I don't have a period. I think it's because I was redoing the periodization. So we can see... Now, bear in mind that at one point, that GMT games number was just over 50%, and it isn't anymore. It's now just over 25%. I don't have the first edition Army Group Center. It's the only one in that series that I'm missing. Vince Reese says Highway to the Reich was crap. Lines up with my understanding. Stigler says it's busted. Brian Gash says the Third World War extra map could be next War Ukraine when the time is right. Possibly. That's possible. You'll notice that a lot of those borders are on there. U-Boater 658, first of all, welcome to the stream. Please don't forget to subscribe. If you have the first edition Army Group Center, do you need to get the second edition? No, I suppose you don't, but the rules are revised to some extent. So you may end up, and you can download the rules now. You may find that you like the changes. And one of the things that is promised is better integration when combining the various games. If you intend to do that, then you definitely maybe want to check out the new edition. So Multi-Man got a lot bigger over the last year or two. Avalon Hill actually got quite a bit bigger over the last year or two. Decision's gone down a bit because I kind of picked up everything from Decision that I wanted a couple years ago. And other than a couple of magazine games that I've picked up, I haven't bought anything from them since Lucky Forward and RAF. SPI got a lot bigger. OSG got quite a bit bigger since I went crazy on the Library of Napoleonic Battles. Compass got quite a bit bigger. TSR at 3%. I think that's 10 games, actually. A couple of those are magazine games, but a couple of them are box games as well. Decent chunk from Hollandspiel. RBM Studio, of course, is C3I games. I've got about 7 or 8 issues of that at this point. I've got very little from the gamers. Most gamer stuff I have is later stuff that came out from MMP, but I do have a couple of things. So I don't have one of periods, even though that's something I've done in the past. But I can tell you that I'm about 40 to 45% World War II in the library. But I'd be real curious to know what that number currently looks like, because there's a whole bunch of additional shit in this list that's been added relatively recently that is not World War II. So the rulebook, you can download the rulebook for Army Group Center. So if you just want to look at the rules, go ahead and do that. I'd expect the scenarios to be modified as well, by the way. Thank you, John, for taking care of that. If Decision wants to redo Axis Empires, whenever that comes out, I'll probably buy that too. I'll buy whatever Goss games they do. Other than that, I think I have just about everything from Decision that I want. I didn't put them on my most anticipated list because I don't expect a new Goss game this year. Over the Rhine is the next full-size Goss games. It's Operation Market Garden and The Shoulders. Very much looking forward to that, but I don't expect to see that till 2024. There might be another Goss magazine game, but I don't expect to see that this year either. And other than that, I do have a periods. That's just the list of periods, though. as I was kind of trying to figure out what periodization makes the most sense for Wargames. So I've dumped a fair amount of GMT, but by and large, my GMT percentage has not gone down because I have dumped a bunch of GMT. It's gone down because I've bought less GMT because I have almost everything from GMT that I want. The stuff I still want from GMT that I don't have yet is stuff that's not out yet. So that's, that's why my GMT number has gone down from 48% to 26%. A lot of that you can, I'm pretty much caught up on GMT stuff. I'm pretty much caught up on Multi-Man. I want to say I'm caught up on Compass. I think that's almost true. There might be a couple odds and ends. I'm pretty much caught up on Decision. My want list at this point is very modest. Let me pull it up here. At this point, my want list is best looked at on BGG. Sword in the Stars. It's the SPI sci-fi version of Empires of the Middle Ages. I had it back in the day. ASL does not account for most of MMP, actually. It accounts for exactly 2 entries, ASL and ASL Starter Kit. That's all. Most of the MMP stuff is OCS, GTS, BCS, and SCS. And the very small number of international series games I played. So ASL is almost nothing. That list does not include anything that is a supplement. So if like say Hollow Legions came out, doesn't even go on the list. It goes on the separate add-ons list because it's not standalone. If it's standalone, it goes on that list. If it's not, it doesn't. GMT is charging soon for the Mark Simonich U.S. Civil War, which is a very good game, by the way. So what else is on the list? River of Death. This is one that goes for $275 and up. This is Chickamauga, Fascinating Battle for GBACW. I am more or less consigned to wait until that comes back out in a new edition before I buy it. If I find there's some targets of opportunity here. If I find a Decision War in Europe that I like the price on, I'll buy it, but I probably won't. Decision at Elst I actually have already. Somebody gave me a good deal on that, so I picked that up. I think I bought it from Ryan Howman, actually. So I don't need to worry about that. The 2 Europa things that I need are Second Front and Scorched Earth. I'm waiting for a good price on those. I might be waiting a while. Ukraine 43, Mark Simonich operational game. I'm happy to wait for a reprint on that. Star Trader, which is an old Ares magazine game, goes with the Universe RPG. I'll pick that up for a reasonable price. There's a couple of the old... Here's another one that I own and is not still on the wish list. Wavell's War. I got that. Fall Blau, the Compass Fall Blau, but I'll wait for the reprint on that. And the 2 Flight of the Eagles, Volume 2 and 3. That's pretty much the wish list. And Le Grand Guerre. Like I said, I'm not going to pay $500 for Le Grand Guerre, but if I see it at a good price, sure. I don't expect to, right? Brent McCabe, look at ACW. Well, I mean, I've done plenty of content on... Not plenty, necessarily. If you want to see content on... American Civil War, check out Patrick's Tactics and Tutorials. He does GC ACW, which is a great series, and he's done tons of content on that. Red Parachutes actually looks... I actually looked at that, and I'm like, this actually looks okay. I really like the Third Winter cover. I really like the Forgotten Battles cover. So I can attest that some of the old GBACW games from GMT, and I'm talking specifically about Dead of Winter, which, that was the second edition of Dead of Winter. Berg had done, I think self-published more or less the original edition. That's got a lot of holes in it, actually. The scenarios are kind of real patchwork. So I prefer to wait for a revision of those games, should that come up. I don't know if $500 is the going price for Le Grand Guerre. I can tell you that I have a search for eBay set up on eBay to let me know when it comes up, and it doesn't come up that often. And when it does, it goes for $250 to $350. There's a couple pretty good priced Star Traders. Again, this is something that's like, do I need that? It's a low priority item. Kind of everything on that wish list at this point is a low priority item in many cases because I'm not willing to pay the going price, right? I mean, I could have a second front tomorrow. Well, not tomorrow, but I could buy one tomorrow and have it next week. I would just have to pay $500 for it, and I don't want to do, or $450, and I don't want to do that. So, oh God, Nordic Maelstrom asks GB1 or Stalingrad 42. So I guess we're a couple minutes late, but I can answer questions here. I would go with Stalingrad 42. So they're on different topics. Okay. So first of all, Guderian's Blitzkrieg is Operation Typhoon. Stalingrad 42 is Case Blue. Okay. If you're asking Case Blue or Stalingrad 42, it's a more apt question because they're on basically the same topic with different systems. Now, Case Blue is 3 maps. Stalingrad 42 is 3 maps. It's highly playable. You could play it in a weekend, I think, a long weekend anyway. But Christopher, thanks very much. Send me an email at ardwulfslair@gmail.com and we'll figure it out. So, high opinion of Stalingrad 42. Guderian's Blitzkrieg 1 is the first OCS game, and many, many, many changes have occurred in OCS since Guderian's Blitzkrieg 1. To such an extent that GB1 is the only OCS game that you cannot play with the current rules. It's a completely different... It's not completely different, but the supply dynamic is very different, right? And obviously that's a core part of OCS. So... I believe GB1 to be of interest now, but as a curiosity, where I think Stalingrad 42 is relevant today. Enemy at the Gates, on the other hand, is the Stalingrad campaign, so it's the northern part of Case Blue, and if you're interested in the Stalingrad campaign specifically, or, the area leading up to Stalingrad, then it is a viable option because Case Blue goes for $850. So, and you can play Enemy at the Gates 1 with the current rules. There's some tweaks. Campaign turns for GB1, I don't know, actually. I mean, standard OCS is 9 turns per month. So it's like 3.5 days per turn. I think that's the same in GB1, but don't quote me on that without checking. How would I compare GMT Operation Typhoon versus GB2? So that's a very interesting comparison. So I think the game you're talking about is the Vance van Borries Typhoon, which was the progenitor of the East Front series, versus GB2, which is Operation Typhoon. So, they're both Operation Typhoon, right? They're the drive on Moscow in late 41, maybe into early 42. They have exactly the same map scale, 5 miles per hex. They have a very similar unit scale. There's more units on the map in OCS than there is in EFS. The supply system obviously is very simplified from the two. I kind of like the way the artillery works in EFS, in that you have specific discrete artillery units that you expend. They add combat factors. I kind of like the way that works. There is, however, that asymmetry that's built into the sequence of play in EFS that I think is probably fine for Operation Typhoon, but it's going to hurt the series if it ever goes into late 1942, right? Without well, I'd be curious to see how it would be handled without crippling the Soviets. So, I think Stigler, again, I think Stigler's wrong about that. I don't agree. Certainly, I don't think you would call that graphic design inside the Third Winter box to necessarily be fancy by today's standards, but it's certainly fine. It's all highly playable, and the counters are completely fine at this point. I haven't had problematic OCS counters since DAC 2, actually, which does have some of the counters have some contrast issues. Generally speaking, that's not a real problem with OCS counters, and it really hasn't been after that. Now, you are going to be able to use the new EFS rulebook with Operation Typhoon, but you might run into problems with scenarios and stuff like that. Yes, it's DG for disorganized. Disorganized. So that's just the way it is. Stalingrad 42 I do recommend. Simonson was a graphic design genius, though, and not in every case does his map necessarily hold up today, but in a surprisingly large number of cases does a Redmond-Simonson map from like 76 or 77 look surprisingly strong today. And that's not because of the graphics, it's because of the graphic design. He really knew what he was doing. GBACW, Stigler, are you talking about GCACW or GBACW? Is Charlie doing the maps for GBACW as well? Because if so, that's cool. I have pre-ordered the Stalingrad 42 expansion kit. It's really just an extra scenario and like a half sheet of counters. So, DG, I mean, you could, this is a 100% semantic argument. Do not care. D-O, because do not care. This is not a serious problem or criticism of OCS or SCS, which also has DG counters. That's a really good idea, Peter Berg's case. You've given me a really good idea. So if I ever design a counter mix for a war game, I refuse to make DG counters. I'm just going to have a counter that says fucked. So you will place a fucked counter on this unit because they are fucked. So how about that? So anyway, Fubar, that's not bad actually. That is actually not bad. We do have the snafu table in BCS. So period appropriate lingo and all that. All right, folks. So we are running a little over tonight. So let me start wrapping up here. First of all, if I haven't said this, and I have, please do subscribe to the channel. Please do thumbs up the video. Please do help out with the Patreon if you like. Thanks very much to the Patreon patrons of Ardwulf's Lair who I flashed earlier. We do have an unboxing video this week. I'm not sure due to the fluid schedule exactly what that's going to be, but it might be Flight of the Eagle. It might be Barbarians at the Gates. I don't know yet. The stream tomorrow is on Dan's channel. That's at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. I don't have a topic yet, but we might do mounted maps. That would be an interesting topic, an interesting low impact topic. Let me put it that way. And then we'll try and squeeze something else out this week. Now, the counter clipping show that is normally would be scheduled for March 21st. That's not a show for the 21st. Is going to occur on Friday, the 25th, instead of Monday. And then the following Monday, we'll be back to the regular schedule once again. So, sorry about the last minute hiccup. I think everything went basically fine until literally the last minute. I'm not sure what's up with that. But I would like to thank everybody for watching. Please tune in to Dan's channel tomorrow for the everything you always wanted to know about wargaming, but we're afraid to ask. And we might have a guest. I'm not sure if we have a guest or not. And we'll be doing some stuff from Buckeye Game Fest. Don't forget about Buckeye Game Fest. War Room opens on April 4th. I've already talked about that. Look up Buckeye Game Fest on Google. We have the War Room. We're going to have plenty of space. There's going to be plenty of table space for you if you want to come and play war games. So